Good morning. Welcome to Dementia Q&A. I'm Dr. Marc, internist and geriatrician. Today's question: what are the earliest symptoms of Alzheimer's disease? I'm asked that question all the time as people become more and more concerned about memory. I generally think of two main early symptoms. First, short-term memory loss. Second, naming. Let's take those one at a time. I think of short-term memory loss less about losing memories than about an inability to take recent events and convert them into a memory that lasts. Let's take an event or a discussion we had this morning or yesterday, maybe the past few days. The person with early Alzheimer's completely participated. They understood what was going on. They were fully aware. They might remember it for a few hours, maybe even a day. But at some point, their brain, their hippocampus in particular, cannot create a memory that will stick. And so, after a certain period of time, they start to ask questions about it. Are you going to pick me up on Thursday? Did we buy a gift for that wedding we're going to? Did we pay that bill like we planned? Once they've asked 2, 3, 4, 5 times, families start to get concerned, and that's usually what gets them into the office for memory tests. We call that short-term memory working memory. This is in stark contrast to long-term memory, memory for one's childhood, one's parents and siblings, important life events. In general, these do not fade early in Alzheimer's. Only much later in the disease do memories of your childhood and parents start to fade away. It's also in contrast to what we call procedural memory, which is the memory required to do lots of things we know how to do very well. Things like driving, watering the plants, taking care of ourselves in the bathroom. Procedural memory generally does not fade away in the early stages of Alzheimer's. It's usually those short-term memories. The second thing was naming. Naming is really part of a larger collection of issues around language, but early in Alzheimer's, it's really the naming part that has a problem. All the rest of language tends to be fine. Things like comprehension for what's being said, usually intact. Being able to articulate one's words, to phonate one's words, to form complete sentences with the proper syntax, and speak clearly. All of that is pretty normal early on. It's the naming of people and places and things that people with early Alzheimer's have trouble with. They are unable to retrieve the word from deep within the recesses of their mind that they need at that moment. How do family and friends tend to notice that? Usually two ways. First, people will start to describe the object or the person or the place instead of naming it. Here's a good example. Instead of saying, I cooked this using a pan on the stove, people will say, I heated it up in the round thing that we always use for cooking on the stove. Instead of saying, I went uptown by train, they might say, I went uptown for my doctor's appointment. I took the, the big thing we always take when we go uptown, the thing on the rails. That's called circumlocution, describing instead of naming. The second thing they might do is they might substitute a word that's incorrect but sounds similar to the word they're looking for after hesitating for a minute. That's called paraphasia. Here's an example. Instead of saying, I took the bus to my doctor's appointment, they might say, yeah, I went uptown. I took the bat. We all have had the experience of not being able to find the right word. We've all had to describe something for a moment until it pops into our head, or until somebody cues us or we cue ourselves and we get that memory back. This is different in early Alzheimer's disease. Cueing people, trying to help them remember that word or that event often doesn't work. And that's because the short-term memory is not there. I hope that this definition of the early symptoms of Alzheimer's is helpful for you as you think about memory loss in a loved one or even in yourself. If you have a question about dementia you'd like a geriatrician to try to answer, please put it in the comments section. And if you've liked or shared or subscribed to this page, it is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next week.